Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniature, and it's been a good long while since I had a ridiculously large model on the table, and this time I feel like I can actually get it painted in a reasonable amount of time. I'm sure someone's going to hold me to those words, so I mean it. I really do. But in front of us we've got one of the Dark Paladins from the Dragon Trappers Lodge as part of their Heralds of the Apocalypse warband army, what have you. And one of the things that I thought was really cool about this release were their angelic beings. And we saw some of the archangels, which don't fit on the screen just yet, previously. This is an early release one, before they had a lot of the chains and thinner parts beefed up. And, you know, as cool and as big as and impressive as they are, I feel like that's one of the best strengths of the Dragon Trappers Lodge stuff, is that they tend to go kind of all out with just wild themes, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about the Corrupted Virtue. Now, the Corrupted Virtue started off as a loyalty reward, and I've always had mixed feelings about this, but the fact that at least everybody has access to them afterwards, if you want to pick one up with all of the sales that inevitably happen throughout the year, you can probably get it for a reasonable price, which isn't bad considering the size of this thing. Case in point, these are regularly sized models with our GW friend there, just to kind of get an idea of what to expect, because, well, here's the base for our Corrupted Virtue. What's interesting is we don't have the typical cut in half, but a more cookie cutter style base, which was kind of surprising. It's a 160 diameter circle, in millimeters obviously. And while it's a pretty straight connection, there are some little gaps. Now, realistically, are you going to see those unless you're looking for them? Yeah, I'm not going to be too worried about it, honestly. Because I think once the figure is on the base, I don't think it's going to be much of a difference. Behind him, we have a bunch of ruined pillars that are supposed to go in there, and I'm not 100% sure which one goes where, but they do seem to, at the very least, be getting larger. And I'm pretty sure that's how they're supposed to go in ascending order. And based on the fact that the keyed sets on the bottom of them seem to match up pretty differently, it's going to go a little like that. Okay, so we've got the base at least figured out. Let's talk about the Virtue itself. Well, here's the first half. Surprisingly, not even hollowed out, but it doesn't really make a difference. And that's where it's going to go. There's a little footprint indentation, and I'm knocking pieces off. There we go. That might be a little bit more obvious than I thought, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's cracked from the sheer presence of this being. I don't know if it's anatomically correct or not. My force of habit, ever since the days of really getting into the Darkland stuff from Mirrors, I just, having to paint giant monster genitalia on multiple occasions has, I don't know, scarred me, I guess. Alright, there's the foot spot. Now, what's funny is I always hear people complain like, hey, Lord Tamberlane, you really like painting and working on these big models. Why don't you work on a bigger scale? And to that I always reply, but I like tabletop scale. I don't like larger figures. I like larger figures for gaming specifically. So when you see the torso of this guy, immediately my mind was just like, oh, I can find a lot of uses for something like this. 4 big arms, and there's lots of holes in him. We'll talk about those holes in a second. He does not even fit on the screen yet. Painting the camera up here. We're entering like Imperial Knight territory, I guess. Where did our Paladin friend go? And we're still not done with him, obviously. For the head, he's got this crazy flaming sphere. And again, just the fact that nothing's even glued in yet speaks volumes of, I can't even fit it still, the fact that he is keyed together quite nicely. I'm going to take him apart for the moment. because things are going to get really wild here in a sec when I start dealing with those holes in him. Let's take a closer look at that. So he's got these holes in his chest and his back. Obviously the wings go in the back, but the fun thing here is much like the kind of pirate game where you got the guy in the barrel, you are going to be sticking swords straight through him. Of course, now that I need to do this on camera, it does not want to cooperate after I've done it repeatedly. There are two different swords, but I could not tell you what the difference is between either of them. Kind of like that. Obviously, we will show you the finished results soon enough. The second sticking out like that. Now the first one, and this one I needed to clean up a little bit, is going to be piercing right through here. And the best way I could figure out how to do that was to actually just kind of slide it in first and then eventually lodge it, but it got stuck so bad that I was afraid I was going to break it, so I'm going to save that for later. And you can see here, there's one blade, and things are popping out now. Out of curiosity, does this one fit too? It does. And then the other one is going to go directly through the back. Fun. In addition, we've got these holes on the back for the wings. The wings are ridiculously huge. They're two parts, and I still kind of worry about them, but I do like how things go together. That is not the matching wing, though. Okay. You'll notice there's another sword hilt sticking out of the wing. And we've got this huge gap, so basically you're just going to epoxy them together, and yeah, his wings have been pierced. The connection seems pretty solid there. You know, I think just a massive amount of glue should hopefully keep things in line. Obviously, if you wanted to pin it, might not be a bad idea, but just the size of the keys, I'm hopeful that things will work out together. Now, the actual connection point to the torso is a little bit smaller than I like, but at least there's a lot of contact area with the surface of the torso, so hopefully that's not going to be a major issue in the future. As you can see there. With those wings attached, this is going to get really big really fast. And so I'm going to hold off on doing any kind of shenanigans with playing around with that, because I am certain to break something. In fact, I already have, and I will be warning everybody, be very careful if you do print this out that you do not break off those sword tips, which I already did. That was not good. So, if you give me a moment, we will get the Virtue all put together here, because the sooner I get it built, the sooner I get it primed, and the sooner I get it primed, the sooner I hopefully get it done. So, want to see that happen? Sit tight. And we are back. As a quick reminder, here is our little dark paladin friend, and paint all over my hands from painting actually a Dragon Trapper's Lodge model. And just to preface, I did not glue everything together, but here is our corrupted Virtue so far. As you can see, he's got those swords straight through him, all lined up nicely, and just looking at our poor little paladin there in comparison is kind of impressive. he's got some size to him, and honestly, if we go ahead and attach those wings, which I am super duper hesitant to do only because it's gonna really knock him off balance here, and I want to get them painted before I actually glue them on. So you can see it's gonna be big, like really big. And really heavy too. But despite that, I mean, almost honestly, you could probably, if you really wanted, even just fill those spots in on the back and just call it a day like that. You know, I gotta say, I am quite impressed with how stable he is on his base. He's not glued down, obviously. I do have a little bit of blue tack, but for the most part, he has been incredibly sturdy in keeping his balance despite everything. So I like that. It's nice to see models that can actually stand on their own. It seems like a rarity sometimes. And I gotta say, honestly, in my opinion, and I know this is, you know, hotly contested and controversial for some people, but I really do feel like the Dragon Trappers Lodge are kind of the champions when it comes to making large and unique models of various sizes and shapes. You know, I feel like they got you covered for a whole lot of different stuff. And just, I mean, yeah, that's going to be absolutely massive and bonkers, and I will paint it. I am crazy enough, and I already kind of have an idea of how I'm going to do this. It may not be the most fantastic work I've ever done, but I am dead set on getting this guy done. I really like this model, and that seems to always be the case. Stuff like this, when it comes to the Lodge, they have models that really kind of grab my imagination. I mean, this thing could be used in all kinds of stuff. Immediately, my first thought was I'm going to get the Doomed back on the table. Haven't played it in a while. It's a fun little system if you guys aren't familiar with it. You can totally use this and stuff, like just about any kind of skirmish game comes to mind. Trench Crusade, who knows? It's some kind of messed up, you know, demonic device that's been enslaved, you know, with the power of God or something. Who knows? Greater Keeper Secrets. I mean, that's the first... Wait, was that the Zinch one? Or is it the Lord of Change? I don't even remember anymore. The big bird things with too many limbs. It could definitely be some kind of exalted Zinchian model, I think, just especially if you paint it up in funky, fun colors, which I plan to. But, you know, I think that's also a testament to the creativity of the designers and sculptors from the Dragon Trappers Lodge. They come up with weird, crazy stuff like this, with the wings pierced through with blades and stuff. I noticed there was an angel I thought there was, and I actually was right in this regard, from their Hell Heist release a while back, that was supposed to be like a insane angel that had been chained up in hell. And while he does look a bit different aesthetically, I think I might have to get him printed up along with some of the other archangels, and especially with the stuff coming in the third release of the Heralds of the Apocalypse. So hopefully we can have everybody all set in the future. But again, really impressive model. Maybe not as crazy as some like their big, massive Ultrasaurus, which one of these days I will go ahead and try printing. I don't know about the Whale Lodge. I'm not going to be that crazy. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you obviously need to go through their back catalog, because they've got some really bonkers pieces out there for those of you crazy enough to print it. I also did leave off the head. It didn't make a huge difference, but the fact that I want to really just, I'm going to cheat and put contrast all over that, and I'm thinking hopefully like build it up to like an almost blinding white, you know, in the center of it seems appropriate. And then I'm going to use like, for whatever reason, I've been using like this weird off kind of blue with a lot of like my angelic stuff, my little horn duder from the Heralds of the Apocalypse. So I'm thinking I might kind of do the same with him. Hopefully that way we have a very matching aesthetic, but nice big model. And if you like things like that, if you want something different, visually impressive for your tabletop or your shelves, because I mean that's where he'll probably spend a lot of time, and especially with some of his other very large friends from the Lodge and places like Archvillain and Bestiarum, I definitely can see him fitting in that regard. So if you haven't had a chance, as always, we have that link down below. You guys can take a look at that yourselves and hopefully find a lot of fun models, much like I continue to do as well. So with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.